Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here and you've never been to the channel before, take a look at the content. If you like it, you can subscribe, like the content, and share it. Feel free to, talk on the channel. Don't be a jerk. But we're trying to create a community here where people can learn. Okay, because that's what I want. I'm a teacher. I'm a coach. I want to teach people how to do things. Okay, and I want them to feel comfortable with asking questions. Okay, so I'm going to talk today about the 80-20 rule. Okay, there are some things that I understand about it and kind of agree with it, but there's most of it I don't. And it's mainly because it's been blown out of proportion in the wrong direction. I'm going to try to be quick with this, okay? So, where does it come from? What's it mean? The idea is that you train 80% of the time with people who are not as good as you, and you train 20% of the time with people who are like at your skill level or better. Okay, now most people heard this from Danaher, popularized it, right, saying that you should train with people who aren't as good at you as you, right, 80% of the time, right, and then that's going to help you improve, right, because you can test things, right, out. You can try new things, right. So it's almost like drilling with like a lot of resistance or something like that, right, and then uh, and then 20% of the time working with somebody who's tough. So my judo coach, right, is in his upper 70s. He's been in judo since like the 1960s. He's an 8th degree black belt. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He's a master of sambo, and he is a former collegiate wrestler. And so he's like been around and seen all these things like jiu-jitsu and everything, like the birth like of it, like in the United States essentially, and then like what it's become. And from what he tells me is that he said that's what Hodger used to say. But when Hodger said it, he was talking about Gracie, that is. He was talking about him training with black belts that weren't as good as him 80% of the time, right? And whereas like Joe Rogan talks about this is like training with some, he has a video where he talks about go beat up some blue belt. Nah, it depends, okay? So there's levels to this stuff. Are you talking about beating up some blue belt with no skill, like somebody who got their blue belt in 6 months and never had any training to anything prior to that? Or like at my old school, where a blue belt was your fifth belt, white, yellow, orange, green, then blue. And it took 3 years to get it. Okay. Even with me, like a D1 wrestling background, I'm not getting a blue belt for like 3 years, although there was a year of COVID. So it probably is more like two under him. Either way, okay. Um, it depends on the level you're talking about, and it depends on how far beyond that you are, right? So like if you're like a black belt and you're trying to get a lot better, are you really going to get the right reactions out of a blue belt to make you better? So these are where I start to find some things break down, right? Like as a scientist and as somebody who's done the sport for 34 years, right? All various forms of grappling, right? Like I know when to call BS when I see it. And when it's blown out of proportion, I think that there's a reason for it. I think that there's a very smart marketing reason for it because jujitsu wants to like bring in everybody and everybody feel comfortable in it, not be super competitive. In fact, in my old school, they used to, if you coached anybody, I was, come from wrestling, right? So I come into jujitsu and people are doing things. I'm like, yeah, that's great. Like, go. He's like, oh, shh, this is like a church. You need to be quiet. You don't want a competitive environment. I was like, whoa, okay, that's new to me, right? Like in wrestling, we all yell at each other and, it's all good fun. Um, so yeah, so there was none of that, right? He doesn't want a competitive atmosphere because people might leave because that's not why they came there, right? And they start when they're older. I didn't start jujitsu until I was 39. Of course, I had a huge background in wrestling beforehand, but so I get it, right? So there's that part of it, right? Like it keeps people around and not be super competitive. And so it's like, oh, okay. Once you become a blue belt, go beat up the white belts. Once you're a white belt, purple belt, go beat up the blue belts, and et cetera, right? And it's like that makes people feel good. I guess like it doesn't make me feel good to beat up somebody who's not as good as me. I don't like it. Like I'd rather train with somebody who's a little closer to my skill level. Okay, so but I understand where it comes from. Okay, because when Danaher's talking about this, you have to understand that his guys wrestle or practice twice a day, probably 2 hour practices each, right? So that's 4 hours a day, 7 days a week. Okay, that's a lot of training. But also consider this. Like, if Danaher even did say, right, because I don't remember all of the details about this, but if Danaher said a blue belt, what's a blue belt under Danaher? Okay, because freaking Big Dan's like a purple belt, or maybe he's a brown belt now, but holy crap. Like, I guarantee you that anybody that trains under Danaher's belt rank, okay, they're much more skilled than somebody like in any hobbyist gym. Okay, so there are differences. And it's like, even if he didn't say blue belt, he's just talking about somebody who's not as good as you. Think about it as like, look at the squad, right? So it's like whoever's underneath the best guy is still good. So they probably would smoke most people in most schools. Okay. And so why am I bringing that up? Okay. It's because of this. When I started wrestling in college, right? Like I had already been wrestling collegiate wrestlers for a while, right? Like when I would go to different camps and stuff, like when I went to Jay Robinson, I primarily wrestled with the collegiate wrestlers that were there. Okay. And so I already kind of knew what I was getting into. But I will tell you that the difference between being like in D1 practice only for a few months was massive. Like my high school is really well known for producing like really high quality wrestlers. In fact, right now, like we have a guy on there that's like national champion. He's a U17 world champion, right? Like super big deal. Okay. And like I went to college for only 3 months, right? And these are the same partners that I had. I come back and it's like they're nothing. Now, did I get that good because I was not wrestling people like who were better than me, like where I was wrestling people beneath me? Like, no, that would literally, and this is like the snarky comment I've left like on one of the Joe Rogan things where he was talking about like, go beat up a blue belt. As I said, oh yeah, that's right. Because when I went to college, like my coach said, hey, today, instead of training here at the university, let's go to the local high school and go beat up all the high school kids because that's going to make you a lot better. Well, it sounds ridiculous, right? Because it is. Okay. I didn't get my quality in my wrestling got so good so fast by being put in a room with a bunch of killers. Okay. A bunch of guys who we got like all of Southern Connecticut's when Southern Connecticut, the D2 program, dropped their program, we got all of their wrestlers, right? When our program went D1. And so these guys, I mean, these were all like, if you know anything about Southern, okay, these were all guys who weren't making grades in other places, right? And so, like, they were just like there to wrestle, okay? Like, they were not scholars, okay? And they were tough, and a lot of them came from like, tough neighborhoods and stuff, okay? And like, you go into that room and and there was a number of guys, several guys who were actually high school All-Americans, right? So they placed in the nation in high school. I mean, we had a tough squad when I got there, okay? And like I walk into this room, right? And I have to like every single practice you realize like you're not giving up hand fighting. You're not giving up, forget giving up a takedown, like, or they're not going to give you a takedown. They're stuffing everything. You're not even getting at the proper hand ties on these guys, right? They're just not giving you anything. So you go back and you wrestle someone that, you like just a few months later, like go home for Christmas and then you wrestle guys that like you just wrestled last season at your high school and holy crap, like it's like they're little children, and I mean, and they're still 18 years old because they're, seniors in high school and you're not much older because you just started your freshman year in college. It's just a few months out of school, and it's like massive the difference. So in wrestling, you always say in the practice room, you're only as good as your partners. Okay. And there's so much truth to that. You are only as good as the people that you train with. Now, like I said, if you're on Danaher's team, right, the people who are second string, third string, whatever, like, in terms of like competition wise, the people that you see in competition, right, like when they want to put out like a team, they're super deep, right? So that you could think of them as almost like a collegiate wrestling squad. So if you take what they said and then you try to apply it to like your local gym, who may just be like, not have a bunch of people at that level, it's not the same thing. You probably do want to train with people who are better than you, right? So like I come to judo and I only train with brown and black belts for the most part. And in like I, had an injury, so I was out for like a year and a half, and I was only doing judo for like a tiny little bit before that. But then in like the last 6, 7 months, like I've gotten really good, really fast. Not by beating up white belts, but by making sure that these people keep me honest. Like they're not going to give me any grips. They're not going to let me do anything with those grips. They're going to shut everything down, right? And so that keeps me honest, so that like when I go into a competition, it's like the idea would be, right, when you go into competition, right, whether that's wrestling, jiu-jitsu, judo, whatever, is that the people in that you compete against aren't as good as the people that you practice with. Doesn't that make sense? Doesn't that make more sense than being like, hey, I beat up blue belts all day long, so that then, let's say I'm a brown or a black belt, right? I beat up blue belts all day long, so that when I go to a brown or black belt competition, that I'm so good that I can beat up brown and black belts, right? That are equal skill to me or better than me. That doesn't make any sense when you say it that way. Okay. And it's because I think Danaher and like Hodger Gracie are being taken out of context. Okay. So that's just one part of it, right? I feel like this is me coming from my background, right, in wrestling, that you get better wrestling with people or training with people who are better than you because they're going to keep you honest and they're going to have the proper reactions. They're going to be ahead of you, right, in everything that you do, and you have to get better. Does it hurt your feelings? Well, if it does, then it means that you're looking at practice wrong. If it hurts your feelings, then you're going into practice trying to win. And I've said this a million times. Like my college wrestling coach used to say, if you go to practice trying to win, you've already lost because that's not the point of practice. It's not. We're trying to win exchanges, win rounds. You're trying to gain positions, right? And control those positions, right? Or put yourself in bad positions and get out of controlling positions, okay? Or if you're learning how to do stand-up stuff, you're trying to control ties, right? No gi, whatever. You're trying to control grips, control ties to get to shots, to get to snap downs, whatever it is that you're working on, whatever it is that you're working on, okay? And then working from those positions to get better. If you're looking at it as winning and losing, that's your problem, right? That's why you probably want to, that's probably why this isn't like enticing. It's enticing to go want to beat up somebody 80% of the time who sucks because you don't like losing because you feel like a loser when you're losing. And that's because your ego is so wrapped up in it that your self-worth is part of what happens in practice. Okay, so but if you go into a room and you know everybody's better than you, the way I always look at it is all these judokas that I train with are better than me. You think I'm gonna freaking get hurt? My feelings get hurt because my coach beats me up when he's a Pan Am Games champion. He's a national champion. He's a Pan Am Games champion. I'm not gonna get my feelings hurt. He's supposed to beat me. So I feel like I have nothing to lose. So in those situations, that's how I look at it. I have nothing to lose. So you're telling me that if I go train with him, I'm not going to be as good as if I train with somebody who's a white belt who doesn't know anything. No, that makes no sense. Okay, the only thing I think that it does, what my friend says, you can learn how to work on your offense, which is what something that Danaher is saying. I'm not disagreeing with him. I think people are taking him out of context. You can work on your offense that way. Now, 80% of the time, why do you think he says that? Because their volume is so high. I've had people comment on my page before and be like, I really appreciate I really like the training twice a day, 7 days a week, but at a lower pace. You do not. No, you don't. You like the idea of it. No, you don't. Maybe you have for a little bit of time. But if that's definitely like the consistency of that is so hard. Like, Helena apparently is that way. Gordon is that way, right? Gary Tonon's that way. Bodoni's probably that way. All these guys that are like, trained under Danaher for a long time, they're all that way. Whereas it's like, this is their job, right? That's all they do. Okay. So they don't train as hard because they are training super, super, super often. But again, the people that are just a step below them or two steps below them are still amazing and would kick the crap out of you. Okay. So I'll finish with this. It's like when people talk about like, Platts, Tom Platts, like with weightlifting, and they would go, yeah, but Tom Platts, he lifted light weights because he did 50 reps. No. Have you seen what Tom Platts can do 50 fucking reps with? It's not light. It's probably higher than your max. Okay. So he's not working with light weights because it's easier. And that's because human beings love easy because easy feels good. And it's like, oh, I could still make progress if I just go easy because they said it. And it's like their easy is way different than your easy. Okay. Generally speaking. That's just the way it is, right? So if you want to get ahead, you have to do things that are hard. If you like just training for the sake of training, which a lot of us like as you're getting older, that's not at some point, bro, my whole purpose is just going to be to keep training for the rest of my life. And it's going to look a lot different than it does now. I don't bang that hard anymore, guys. Like, I'm 45. I did judo yesterday. My hands hurt. Okay. There are parts of me, my knee that I've had reconstructed hurts. Things hurt. Okay. Would I go into judo right now if I had a practice? Yes, I would. Would I? And then after I warm up, I'm fine. Right. But I'm going to instead lift weights. Right. I'll probably do some cardio, probably lift weights, but I'm not training like I used to. Right. So you also have to be realistic. Okay. With yourself. And I think that that's where that 80-20 thing is enticing. And I think it keeps people coming back, right? They feel like that they're getting something out of it. But like honestly, like when I leave practice, I want to really feel like I had a practice. I don't want to leave practice and be like good enough, just because I don't feel like at this point in my life that I want to just coast, right? Because as Jay Robinson said, right, if you're not improving, then you're coasting, and the only way to coast is downhill. Okay, so that's my thoughts on the 80-20 rule, right? I think it's been taken out of context. If you want to get better, I think you do have to train with people that are better than you. People are like, well, what if you just get smashed all the time? Well, I mean, I'm sorry that that hurts your feelings, man. But maybe it's because the person outweighs you by 100 pounds. And then that makes sense. If they're smashing you all the time and you're same size, yeah, there's a massive skill discrepancy. But if you think, right, don't you think that that's going to make you get better to ask that person how to get out, right? Have them teach you, right? They probably will, right? Make that a goal of yourself to improve a little bit every time because you know that they're already good, right? That kind of thing. Instead of lying to yourself and saying that, like, if I just go beat up on kids, then I'm going to get better. You're not. You're not going to get better. Okay, like you're going to get better training with people who are better than you. All right, and it just depends on what your goals are to get better. So anyway, that's all I got for today. If you like the content, please like and subscribe. If you want to leave comments, please do so. Please be respectful if possible. Kind of hard to do with some people, but until next time, thanks for watching.